Okay, so here I'm going to be kind of an aggressive ass for a second. Almost everybody involved in crypto is basically an idiot, right? Like, I mean, it's just my God. If you try and justify what we're doing in terms of any kind of really fundamental economic driver, the Bitcoin thesis is the U.S. government can't stop printing money and the financial system will collapse. Okay, sure, maybe that happens, but at the end of that process, do you think you're going to be able to eat Bitcoin? It's like, oh, wait, we might have worse problems in currency if that happens. So, this notion of Bitcoin as kind of a lifeboat, as a way of escaping from the fiscal irresponsibility of the nation state, yeah, all that is good and fine and all the rest of that, but, if you do wind up with an actual dollar default, are they going to be able to keep an electrical grid on? Are they going to be able to keep food production running? Nobody really knows, right? So, Bitcoin is a hedge against something, but it's not necessarily a hedge against what you think it's a hedge against. Then you get, the kind of ZK snark, Zcash, Monero framing, and, all of that stuff will get great. Now, what is our application here? Well, our application here is basically evading counter-terrorist financing. Whoa, well, we don't use it for that. We use it for printing libertarian pamphlets. Yeah, okay, sure, but, that's like 1% of the volume. What's everybody else doing? Oh, they're trading uranium. So, that, again, it's a use case, but it's a use case that doesn't necessarily stand up when you apply pressure to it. The real use case is that probably 70 or 80% of the world's assets are not tradable on an electronic exchange. You can't do electronic trading for real estate. You can't do electronic trading for patents. You can't do electronic trading for copyright licenses. You can't do electronic trading for a huge number of kind of so-called alternative investment assets, whether that's fine art or cars or life insurance policies or whatever these things happen to be. There is just this enormous dark matter in the global economy of assets that don't have digital identities and don't have any exchanges. And the volume of transactions on that stuff a year are staggering. And, I've been kind of angling on that since before I started Mattereum. Actually, to be honest, before I got involved in the Ethereum Foundation, 2014, my first year being paid in gold-backed digital tokens was 1999. I'd been down this rabbit hole a long time ago when it was, Ian Grigg and those guys. So, what is crypto for? It's for assigning a digital identity to the massive number of assets in the world that don't have identities, and it's for making those things now tradable on exchanges. And if we had half of the world's dark assets actually identified and made tradable, even if there was a currency crisis, people would simply find ways of using those assets as backing for currencies. If we had all of the real estate in the world, if we had half of that stuff tagged, if we had half of the cars and all the other stuff in the world tagged and made tradable, all of the other alternative investment assets, 50% of it tagged and made tradable, at the point where the dollar suddenly takes a hiccup at one moment, sure, okay, the dollar is hyperinflating, but everybody just moves into a tokenized hard asset, and when they need to make a transaction, they flip back into dollars for 0.2 of a second, and there's no inflation. And that is a model for how you stabilize the global financial system. That is credible because the size of the dollar crisis is a small part of the value of those assets. And that is not true, for example, for Bitcoin. Bitcoin will do insane numbers as the dollar begins to spiral down, but it doesn't have the bandwidth in transactional terms or the carrying capacity in terms of distribution to take over as a way of producing things like iPhones. But if you were going to see things like baskets of real estate being used as anchoring for tokens, and those were going to be used for international transactions in a post-dollar environment, that is a fully credible, believable story, and you can run the numbers on that, and it just about works. So, when I say everybody in crypto is an idiot, it's like, why are we not talking about the mass digitization of the world's assets as the dominant driver in crypto, rather than USDT or even Bitcoin?